Our next speaker, Jack Kantola, has been a Toastmaster for over 40 years. He credits Toastmasters for giving him the communication skills necessary for a successful business career. In his business and personal life, he learned the importance of the little things, the things you do that don't seem significant to you, but have an enormous impact on others. Today, Jack will be fulfilling Project 10 in the Confident Communicator Manual, Inspire Your Audience. The title of his speech is It Doesn't Take Much. Speaking for 8 to 10 minutes, please help me welcome Jack Kantola.
Tears came to Rosanna's eyes, and she said, "Nobody's ever said that to me before." Madam Toastmaster, most welcome guests and fellow Toastmasters. Rosanna was the receptionist at Microdot Aerospace Limited in England, where I was managing director. And one day, my secretary brought in a letter that we had received, and it was directed to managing director. And it said, "I called into your office and met your receptionist, and she treated me so well. She did her job so efficiently. I am sure she is the best receptionist in all of England." Well, I couldn't let that pass. So I went out and I bought a bottle of champagne. I made a copy of the letter for the file. I took the champagne and the letter down to reception. And I walked up to Rosanna's desk and I said, "Rosanna, I'd like to have you take this bottle of champagne home tonight to share with your husband." And her reaction was, "What on earth for?" And then I opened the letter and handed it to her and I said, "There's a fella who called in on us who feels that you are the best receptionist in all of England." And I said, "I happen to agree." She looked at that letter, read part of it. Tears came to her eyes. She said, "Nobody has ever said that to me before." Now I noticed a change in Rosanna's life that day. Her attitude toward me changed completely. And I think her attitude, her job just made her do better. The champagne wasn't important, but it is important to England, and it gave her a reason to go home and brag about it to her husband. Because he would say, "Well, why on earth did you get that bottle of champagne?" It's a little thing, but it meant a lot to Rosanna. There's a Spanish word, palanca. Palanca is translated as a lever. That letter, that response, that positive feedback for Rosanna was like a lever that helped to lift her up. Now there are a lot of other occasions when that happens, and for me it happened when I learned that my friend, a fellow that I went through all of high school with, Ron Loberg, was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Now, I didn't know whether or when I would be able to get back to see him in person, so what I did was I wrote a little note. And I sent that note to Ron, and all I said is, "Ron, you're in my prayers and will always be. And I want you to know that I have always valued you as a good and loyal friend. Thank you for being my friend." And I thought nothing more of it. After 3 or 4 years after he had passed away, my wife and I were in Minnesota, and we rented a condo and invited some friends over to enjoy some time together. And so I called Carmen, Ron's wife, to invite her over. And during our conversation, she shared the fact that during these last days, the note that I had sent Ron resided on his nightstand, and that everyone that came over to visit had to read the note. No big deal, just a little note. But to him, it was validation for his life as a friend. It was a lever that lifted him up in these last days, and something that he cherished. Doesn't take much to impact the life of others. All it takes is a little bit of time and a little bit of effort. Now, a number of years ago, after my mother had passed away, my brother Dave was saying that he was at the house, at my mother's bedside, and she asked for her purse. And so Dave got her purse. She reached in the purse and she pulled out a little piece of paper that was folded and starting to get worn. She opened up that piece of paper, and it was a note that I had sent them. Now you have to recognize I grew up in a Finnish family. We tend to be a little stoic. It's like my brother Don said to his wife when she said, "Why don't you ever tell me you love me?" He said, "Don't you remember when we got engaged? I told you then. If anything changes, I'll let you know." In my youth, the only person that really came up and gave us hugs and told us that she loved us was my Aunt Mary. And she was an outlier. She was a total exception to the Finnish tradition. So we didn't say that we loved each other. We didn't verbalize that. But we knew it was true. But, you know, I came out to California. I went to one of these sensitivity trainings. Damn it, I found out that I had never really told my parents I loved them. And so I wrote that little note. And all I said, because I didn't know what else to say, was, "I just wanted you to know that I love you both very much." That little piece of paper that was folded up had lived in my mother's purse for a number of years. Do you think it meant something to her? Absolutely. Because those thoughts, growing up, even when you're a stoic Finlander, is that you like to hear somebody say they love you, that they care about you. It was that lever that lifted her up, that she cherished, and she kept for so many years until it was getting worn out. My challenge to you Toastmasters today, and some of you may have already started thinking about this, is who is it in your life? Who is it in your life that is waiting for you to say something? And my challenge is for you this holiday season is to take the time to just write a note. Now there's a significance in writing a note. Do you think that my mother would have saved this if it would have been on the Twitter page? An email? Or a Facebook message? It would have gone and passed in the night. But the fact that I took a time to write it down on a piece of paper, and it doesn't make any difference what the paper is, but the words on that piece of paper are what's important. And the words on that piece of paper are what is cherished by the people that receive them. So don't take shortcuts. Don't get crazy with it. But just for one person this year, write that note that maybe you've been waiting to write, thinking about writing. Don't let it pass. It's an opportunity to use that palanca lever to lift someone up. And remember, it doesn't take much. And